After looking at the film, after spending yesterday, I'm presuming, on the defense, what do you think are the pressing issues, and what do you intend to do about it?
Pressing issues, eliminate the big play. There are 14 plays in there, and I actually met with the entire defense, with the defensive staff in there, and instead of just complaining, whining, and making noise, we have to put a plan together, and that's eliminate big plays. How do you eliminate big plays? Number one is 4 to 6 seconds. Number two is missed tackles, and number three is leverage on the ball. Those are three things we're going to really, not that we haven't coached hard, but you get what you emphasize. So I'm not a big believer in you scream and yell and throw Gatorade bottles against the wall. Sometimes you have to do that. However, you fix what the problem is. Case in point was Ohio State had a real issue with throwing the ball downfield to a receiver that could catch it. And we could have just screamed and yelled and complained and whined, and there was a little bit of that, but there was a lot of work on trying to get efficient at throwing the ball down the field, and now we're much better. We're still not perfect, but we're much better. So my point is, on defense, the three areas: eliminate the big play, eliminate the I mean, it's been absurd how many big plays we give up. How do you do that? Well, one is missed tackles. Number one, excuse me, is 4 to 6 finishing plays. 4 to 6 seconds is our mantra around here. Finish plays, missed tackles, and then leverage on the ball. Some of those cutbacks, just because we have to reteach leverage to some players that are relatively young, or even some relatively old players that just need to be recoached.
How happy or unhappy are you with the job of coaching on that side of the ball?
I mean, I'm not happy at all with what's going on defense. Include players, coaches, and I think we can all get better. It's a team effort, though, and I mean, we got good coaches, good players. We're going to move forward and get better.
Middle, Dave.
Dave Biddle, Bucknuts. I know we got a chance to ask Coach Fickle about this as well, Coach. But what is holding the freshman linebackers back, in your opinion? Is it the lack of knowledge of the defense? What's holding those guys back?
Injuries. Cam Williams was hurt. Josh Perry was hurt during the week. Those are two guys. There was one point on a Tuesday practice. That's when I grabbed Zach Boren during stretch and said, "Hey, we're going to move you over." Because guys were limping. Guys, Shazier didn't practice, Cam Williams didn't practice, Josh Perry didn't practice. The two guys who are helping us on kicking game is David Perkins, Jamal. They're having a hard time learning the defense, and so we're in a little bit dire straits right now at that position.
Middle, Bob.
I'm curious, how much was being shorthanded on defense do you think was part of what happened Saturday night? And I'm also curious, it would seem like moving a fullback to linebacker, that even if you had a linebacker ready, you've been practicing linebacker all year, maybe he would be in a better position.
I agree with you, Bob. The first one, how much of that is either inexperienced, youth, or whatever? That's a really good, solid excuse. I mean, that's a solid one, and there's probably some truth to that. However, we don't deal with that. We deal with improving. And Zach Boren is a guy that there's something about game experience. There's something about been in the arena many times. Came here as a linebacker, and it was kind of a test for the first 4 periods of practice that I watched. And he changed the entire dynamic of practice, because so much of playing football is the leadership value too of what's going on. You know, who's the tough guy on the defense? Who's the guy that's going to stand up and take charge? And you start sticking freshmen here and there and here and there. They're just in survival mode, not leadership mode. Nate Williams also had a concussion that I was expecting him back, and it just got worse as the week progressed. He'll be back this week. He worked out yesterday with us, so that's another leader on that. You know, that's right now we're putting the APB out for tough guys, for the guys that take the center of the defense and make it whole. And Zach has certainly helped with that. Sabino was kind of our guy. You know, he's a kind of leader. Shazier's getting better. But Nate Williams and John Simon, it's a little harder when you're on the edge. It's that old saying about what makes a baseball team real solid when they're strong through the middle. It's just because all eyes and the focus. I really believe that in football is more than as much as in baseball. Same on offense. That's why so much emphasis on our center. It's got to be a grown man. Has to be. You can't hide a center, because that's why they call him the center. You can't hide a middle linebacker. You can't hide the center of your defense has got to be strong.
Right front, Austin.
Austin Moore, ESPN.com. Carlos Hyde seems like a guy who just gains strength the more carries you give him. With that being said, if Jordan were to come back, would you still have to consider leaving Carlos out there
Sure.
to get 20?
Yeah, I see the same thing. Real disappointed the way he started, though. He didn't start strong. And he'll be the first one. He's finally to the point in his career where I can have grown man conversation with him, and it was great. He admitted that, and it just wasn't. I think all those great excuses I told you about the trip, the whole everything, and we just didn't start very fast. He did not, but he got real strong. By the end of the game, he was a man. And you're right. If Jordan is, he's jogging now. That he's not healing well. So, but Carlos won't be removed from tailback.
He's mentioned on occasion that he maybe had to be sold on a power back role in the spread offense. Is there any?
Had to be sold?
Yeah, he didn't really maybe understand how he would fit.
So we had to sell him.
You didn't feel like you ever had to do that then?
No. There's no selling going on. There's play very well or don't play. And the good thing is he's playing really well. I mean, his post-contact yardage is really is making us a really good offense. We had 36 minutes of possession, and I'd like to say that Hireman, Nick Vanette, and Carlos Hyde, along with those two tackles, that was an impressive day for him.
Back left, Matt.
Matt McCoy, WTVN. In terms of the move you made with Zach, how unusual is that for you? Have you been through something like that before anywhere? And number two, what goes into that too offensively that you felt like you could, somebody playing at a level, you mentioned Jeff Hireman, somebody playing at a level that can fill the void so you feel like you can spare him there? How does that work?
Very good point. I mean, that move could not have been made if you didn't have Hireman and Vanette. You just can't do it as much as you'd want to do that. But Hireman has been coming on. He has been playing. He's been playing his 10 to 15 plays a game, and now he played 50. Same with Nick Vanette is really coming on. The good thing is those guys are around here for a few years. I was thinking, and our strength coach reminded me, we did that one time with Mike Pouncey, the starting center for the Dolphins. Right in the middle of a practice, I moved him to defensive tackle because we were banged and bruised, didn't have the leadership, didn't have the toughness at that point. And I moved him for period 4, and it changed the whole practice. His energy, his leadership, his toughness. And we kept him over there for several games just until guys got back. So it's not very unusual, though.
Just kind of a general question about with college football. It's trending these days with offense. It seems like there's a lot of games these days where both teams are scoring 40, 50 points. And I'm sure you didn't necessarily want to contribute to that with the way that defense is playing these days. But just with spread offenses and no-huddle offenses and maybe even some of the rule changes, is it getting harder and harder to play defense in college football these days?
I haven't studied the landscape. I can just tell you our situation. I do think that when you start getting 80 plays, 85 plays, and that's because of tempo, but it's also there's a risk involved with up-tempo too. If you're lousy on offense, your defense is out there all day. So I haven't had time to think on a national level, but I'm sure that has something to do with it.
Middle left, Jared.
Urban, just something about Purdue. How do you judge them? I don't know how much you had a chance to study them so far, but obviously they got gashed running the football from Wisconsin Saturday. Do you judge them a little bit more on that, or maybe some other evidence you've seen of them defensively, but what they might present?
Well, the most recent film right before I walked in there was the Notre Dame film, and they played very well. They kind of held their own and could have won that game. So I have not watched Wisconsin yet because it's just I watched that tonight, and I'll go through the difference plays. But I know my player personnel director, John Cooper, gave me a sheet of paper, and there's a lot of NFL prospects on there, and one's a very early round draft pick on defensive line, and he's a dynamic player. So that's it's too early to give you the whole why Wisconsin did that. I see very good players. I see an aggressive scheme. It's not a vanilla scheme. Last couple weeks they kind of showed you their hand and played it. This group's all over the place. It's a little bit of they play a bunch of different defenses, so we have to just be on our game.
Middle left, David.
Dave Briggs, Toledo played. Urban, with how you mentioned you want to get more involved in defense, how in a week where the defense is such a focus, how would your time allocation change and attention a lot more divided than would be ideal?
Well, I've been thinking about that, and I don't know. I've not done that very often. I think my job is to support our staff, support our players, and the one thing that the overall theme of our team is 4 to 6 seconds, and so I can coach that really well. And that's we're going to demand 4 to 6 seconds of relentless pursuit and effort. And if you don't, then I'll be involved in that. But calling defenses, I'll give my ideas, but once again, that'd be a mistake for me to come in. And we have very good coaches. So I think mine is going to be one of leadership, toughness, and the 4 to 6 second demand that we have on this team, not just defense.
Front left, Rusty.
Rusty Miller, AP. Do you anticipate that you might have to make additional personnel moves just to shore up linebacker in other areas?
There's conversation. The options are very limited right now, so that's one. The guy that played very well is Noah Spence. So the thing you have to ask yourself, okay, Noah Spence and Nate Williams play the same position, so let's have conversation about that, and we are. How do you get them both on the field at the same time is the conversation. If they're your best 11, 3-4, 4-3, whatever, go get them on the field. And we're good enough coaches. Let's figure that out. So I'm not saying that's happening. We're just identifying who the best 11 players are, and let's put that puzzle together.
Injury-wise, do you anticipate you'll have Nathan back?
Yeah, he worked out. Feels good. Jordan Hall, doubtful.
Right in front, Tim.
Tim Makelam's Dispatch. A couple, 3 questions. Urban, number one, is the Zach Gordon move permanent, or how would you call it?
Temporarily permanent.
Temporarily permanent. Number 2, what do you tell Devin Smith this week? He had 2 huge plays in that game. He had 2 huge drops. Where is he in your thinking in that regard?
As one of the most improved players on the team, he just needs to keep improving. I just met with a receiver coach and said, what a great position to finally be in at Ohio State. You haven't been here yet, and you got kids now that there's just a touch of confidence in that room. You can't go in and just be very aggressive coaching when you have lack of confidence, because then you just destroy any ounce of confidence. And that's, of all the great coaches I work for, Lou Holtz was the greatest at that. First of all, you got to get confidence, and then you coach them as hard as you can. You finally walk in the wide receiver room here at Ohio State, and it's probably been a while. I can only speak this year. We have not had one day since December, whatever it was, to walk in the receiver room and coach them hard, because they would actually believe you if you told them we're not good. Now you can start coaching a kid like Devin Smith really hard, and I can't wait, because he's a great kid and he's really worked hard, and he bounced back and made the play of the day on that square end. So that was a play of the day. That was excellent. And that shows you Zach Smith's got something good going with him. Drop a ball, usually the head drops. The head certainly would have, in spring practice, you would have seen there would have been tears and he would have been off the field. Now he came right back, and if you watch that closely too, the first guy, or about the third guy that meets him in the end zone, is number 5. And his energy, and that's good to see.
Yeah, and the other thing, Rod Smith, he's having a pretty good night. I mean, especially on kickoff returns, and the ball's on the ground. What do you do with him this week?
Keep coaching
him. A lot
hard.
of guys made mistakes in that game, but yeah. I mean, he's still in your plans, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's we say 4 to 6 seconds. That's if you go 4 to 6, that's the coach's job to get his wrist above the elbow and be a little tighter with the ball. But if you're giving us everything you got, which Rod Smith is right now, he also had a bad penalty on a punt return. Bad penalty, but he's going as hard as he can. We can coach through that. It's the ones that don't go hard. I don't know really what to say to you. Go harder. We don't say go harder. You should have learned that by now. But Rod Smith, get your wrist above the elbow, da-da-da. He was too fast on his course, too. I mean, we got to slow him down a little bit.
What do you think about that call, by the way? Was it legit?
The punt?
On that block in the back?
Yeah, it really wasn't, but the guy who calls it doesn't matter. He sees the hand. And
Front, Doug.
Doug Harris, Indiana News. Hey, Urban, you mentioned a couple of times going down and talking to J-Min, Wayne, J-Min.
Sure.
What do you get out of that? What's the purpose of trying to communicate about Braxton?
Just as close as we get with players, I want to know his background. I want to know what anything from his work ethic and practice to his love of the game, to his family involvement, to his motivation for his, and Jay, I've known him a little bit. I know him very well now. I think he runs not a good program, a great program. So I on purpose drove down there for that reason. And, I just spent a lot of time with him because I knew how critical my relationship was going to be with Braxton.
What kind of feedback do you get?
Oh, they love him, obviously. He did great things for the program. The same humble kid that, it's hard to find those guys nowadays, especially as athletic and successful as he's been. So very similar, and it really helped me on how to, Coach Mims really helped me on how to approach Braxton. We still talk.
Front left, Doug.
Doug Lamorese, Cleveland playing dealer. Urban, you guys are undefeated, you're highly ranked. There are a lot of teams out there that score a lot of points and give up a lot of points and still win games. Could you be successful sort of doing it like this?
Not long run, no. No, I think temporarily, I think you can. The ones that get to where the error is rare are real elite teams. At some point you got to play some really good defense, and they all do. You know, the top two right now are Alabama and Florida, probably two best defenses in America, and that's not by accident. They're 1 and 2. You know, the great teams we've had over the years have been, yeah, we scored some points, but at the end of the day, you got to defense wins games. And as much as I love the other part of it, defense and kicking game is how you go win a game.
And just, you talked before the season, obviously you have coaches you haven't worked with, just sort of how it goes. Do you feel good about where you are just with the defensive staff in terms of being on the same page, how they coach it, what the game plan is, all that kind of stuff? Are you comfortable with your relationship in coaching with the defensive staff?
Yes, I do. I feel comfortable. I think it takes time. It's not the same staff it was a year ago. You know, there's new guys in that room. But I feel good. They're great people and very good coaches, and we just need to see more production on that side of the ball.
Far left, Lori.
Lori Schmidt, 97.1 The Fan. Coach, when you guys talk about having a balanced offense, is that something that has to play out over the season, or is that something that you need within every game to be happy?
This is probably the most imbalanced we've been. However, I think we threw for 200 Saturday. Usually you don't run for 300 and some yards. I mean, that's hard to do. We've had 2 back-to-back games where it's almost 700 yards rushing or 600 and some change. You kind of go back to what's working well for you. Also, in game management, we notice we're not as fast as we've been because we want to eat up as much clock, especially when you're having issues on the other side of the ball, and so we play together. And so it's just been a little bit different of the way we managed the game, because at the end of the day we got to win it, and if that means a little more imbalanced in the run, I'm fine with that.
How many times over your career have you coached a team where you've been so pleased with one aspect of your offense that you've been willing to unbalance things a little bit?
I can't really remember. You're catching me off guard a little bit, but I think when we had Tim, we were a little imbalanced at times because he was so good at running the ball.
Brandon, middle.
Brandon Castel with the Ozone. You said, I think in spring, that you guys needed Curtis Grant to be a player for you guys on defense. Played the whole spring as your starting middle linebacker and played through fall camp. Is there something more to the fact that you can't really get him in there on defense and you had to go to a guy like Zach and move him over?
To be fair to Curtis, I think that's appropriate because I'm not that knee-deep in that. You know, I love Curtis Grant. He's a good person and has ability. I think those are questions you can ask Coach Fickell, and I support it all, but I think you'll see more and more of Curtis Grant. He's only a sophomore, didn't play much at all linebacker last year. It took a little longer. Sometimes guys go through that learning curve of whether it be the style of defense, whether it be overall system of play, and but I still think Curtis Grant's going to have a fine career here.
I'm sorry, Steve Hellwagen.
Yeah, Coach, Steve Hellwagen, Bucknuts. Along the same lines as Josh Perry, you guys have him listed here, but I didn't really recall seeing him play a whole lot. Maybe was the spread maybe not something that he's equipped to play against, I don't know, and just what his status is. But
he got hurt on either Tuesday or Wednesday in practice. I want to say Tuesday is when that whole shift of Zach Bourne went over. He got dinged up. Connor was the other one who got hurt. So at one point we had 3 linebackers, Shazier 4, Sabino, so 5 linebackers were standing on the side, and that was it's hard to be real optimistic about that position, and that's when Zach made the move. So that's the only reason. Josh Perry, I think, is also going to be, once again, you're just dealing with the young kids, man, that they have to play better.
And follow up, the long run that they hit early in the game with Houston, it appeared guys were out of position. Nobody Roby flew into the line of scrimmage, and I don't know what you see there. What happened?
Yeah, very poor defense. I saw a defensive tackle get wiped out when he was supposed to hold a gap, misalignment by a linebacker, and then just I mean, just a bad defensive play.
You see instincts from, by the way, real quick, from Zach Boring that tells you he is a former linebacker. Does he
Absolutely.
play like, how does that show up?
Oh, he's a football position guy. He's always in the reverse arc, we call it. You know, his shoulders, he's not a body-heavy guy. He's always lateral movement. And on top of all of that, he's a tough guy. So I think he led the team. Someone said he led the team in tackles, which is hard to believe, but he did.
Last 2 questions. Rob and then Clay.
Rob Aller, Columbus Day. Urban, kind of the identity of this program for years now has been defense, silver bullets and all that. You come in and publicly at least it's spread. How much of a danger is there that the mindset changes among defensive guys that we're kind of offensive?
Oh, we can't have that. That's not going to happen. That's the question right here about are we, you know, do we want to win 48-47? We want to win, but no, that's silver bullets. Ohio State is going to be a defensive school, absolutely. Our teams are going to be defensive, no question. Now when and how, and that's what's happening. But no, if you sit in these meetings and are aware of what's being said, there's no conversation about chuck and duck and spread and all that. That's not what we are. We're a physical offense and a physical defense. We play the game the right way. We just do from a variety of sets.
Last question, Clay.
Yeah, Clay Hall, ABC 6'2", Coach. You said you were exposed by the spread. Was it by those factors you mentioned at the top, the things you want to improve on? Is that why you were exposed?
No, 4 to 6, once again, I think that there's so much that you can put in a, well, what about this? This is the problem. There's a lot of things we have to get fixed. It comes down to eliminating big plays, and that's easy to say, but how do you do that? 4 to 6 seconds, missed tackles, and leverage on the ball. Every one of those big plays, we didn't have great leverage. We had very poor leverage on the ball, the one that the gentleman just talked about coming out the gate. That near the end of the game, the cutback run, just very poor leverage on the ball. And usually this time of the year, you're working on scheme. You know, spring practice, training camp is when you do a lot of leverage drills. We're going to enhance that, make it a little stronger, and make sure our players understand the leverage on the football.
I'm going to get a soundbite for a guy down south. You and Dan Mullen are 13-0 this year combined, whatever. You worked with him for quite a while. He's had success. You as well. Did you have good synergy, obviously, in Florida?
Yeah, great synergy, great football coach. I missed him dearly, and I think the guy I got now is very similar. I mean, there's very, very intelligent, tough guys, and you know, I love Dan, but you look at Charlie Strong, you look at Steve Adazio, a bunch of good football coaches that were on my staff. Awful proud of them. I think is Charlie undefeated too?
Yes.
Pretty good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Coach.